The first imprint of the nervous system is our mother's nervous system, because we're one with her. We're not separated for 9 months. If my mom never learned how to deal with stress, how to deal with her emotions, that's my first imprint.
How do we get to the actual
root
root
cause
and core of our blocks?
That's why trauma is also stored in the body, not only in the subconscious mind. The body has a different intelligence than the mind. Our mother, she represents life for us. So the moment I cannot say yes to my mother, cannot embrace her, I cannot say yes to life, and I actually reject a part within myself the moment I reject her. If I'm not able, for whatever reason, to deal with my own trauma, what happens for there to be balance on an energetic level? Someone else within the family is going to be entangled with my trauma for there to be peace.
How do we trust the potential of a future that we don't see or feel yet and still walk into the unknown with confidence?
There are safe spaces in the world where you're fully accepted and welcomed and acknowledged with all these traumatized parts, with all these wounded parts that they have abandoned within themselves. There are safe spaces.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, first of all.
So let's do a first introduction. Who are you? What do you do? What are you most passionate about? And why do you do what you do?
Beautiful. So my name is Solange Beaumont, and I am a holistic trauma healing therapist and regression reincarnation therapist. I've been doing this work for 11 years now. And my passion is to support people in freeing them from unhealed, unresolved trauma. Whether that's childhood trauma, trauma they experienced during birth, trauma they experienced while they were in their mother's womb, and ancestral trauma as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm really passionate about creating that safe space for people where they feel safe finally again to open up and to dive deeper into the subconscious, to finally free themselves from the trauma that they've been carrying without even knowing it sometimes.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
You asked what inspired to do the show.
I'm curious.
The show was inspired, such a long journey, a very personal journey, of course. My whole life, my soul tries to really find out what it's meant to do here. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is my mission? But most importantly, also how to connect to truth. I'm really obsessed with truth. We live in this really superficial world. A lot of stuff gets hidden, and somehow my inner core and soul is protesting against it. Also, this show is a continuation of learning. I'm also a Scorpio. I really love to go to the depth of things and really find the truth and essence of anything, especially in these intangible things like creativity, imagination, spirituality, healing, energy work, quantum physics. Once I opened this door,
it's infinite, like that you can discover there.
Exactly, 10 new doors open, then again 10 new. And so every time I meet a mentor, or a teacher, I want to hold it in time, capture it. And also so I can rewatch it and also for other people to learn it. For this show, I really want to have raw, honest conversations. Just sit experts down and just have a raw conversations about whatever their truth is, whatever they found out in their life and their spiritual journey. I tried to go into the film world. I lived in Hollywood.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I tried to
experience it all.
Yes, from Hollywood to the monastery with monks.
to completely different ends. Oh wow, interesting. Maybe for me, good to know, to connect to the topic we go into. What brought you into more the subconscious healing or energy healing, trauma healing? What brought you there?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, we cannot create a new future by holding on to old emotions and keep acting out of old emotions, suppressed subconscious patterns, and the results will always be the same. I mean, the more I go into healing work and the more I go into introspection and truly listen to my soul, the more I see and understand that some parts are just not in the conscious. The most of them are so far hidden. They're so deep. Sometimes we feel this really deep pain and I'm like, where is it coming from? It's somewhere in my memories, but I cannot access it. And it drives me crazy, being obsessed with truth and knowing and understanding. And I understand some things you don't need to fully understand logically for it to work. Also finding myself in patterns, and realizing, wow, I felt this before, this exact same pain. Why am I doing this again to me? And obviously, consciously, we don't want any pain or find ourselves in these patterns, especially when we want to grow. And I started understanding a lot of things logically, but still I find myself sometimes in this space in between consciously and logically understanding very well my problems, my traumas, where it's coming from, going into deep analysis, you know, and fully understanding.
Yes.
And still yet not taking action to behave in a new way.
This is interesting. We can go.
And it's a very narrow space because you fully understand, you know, the things you want to change to grow and to be more free and more fulfilled. And still yet you're not taking the right action because subconsciously something is always self-sabotaging the process. And coming in, you know. I mean, this chain of how we act is very known. Our thoughts create our decisions in life. The decisions obviously create our behavior, and the behavior creates the end result, our emotions, how we want to feel. And usually we really pay attention to that. That's what we live for. We want to feel fulfilled and in peace and in harmony. And we don't really realize this chain. What happens actually before we feel anything? Before the thoughts. What comes even before that? Before that, it's our core beliefs, you know, that were most likely programmed into us very early in childhood. That
even
are
further in the womb already.
Oh,
that's where the imprint starts.
Wow. So they were programmed into us. It's not by our choice usually. And sometimes we find ourselves in the middle of our life realizing, wow, these beliefs I have, I don't want to have them. I don't want to believe what I believe. I want to change it. Anyway, so
interesting.
Subconscious
Beautiful.
Is like so powerful. And I underestimated it, you know. It's like I always try to heal from the conscious place. And now I realize, wow, there's so many things hidden so far deep in the subconscious that are really hard to access sometimes. So the only way to heal some things in life, like I think traumas and suppressed emotion, you need to go into the subconscious space to access them first and then reprogram and change them from that place, not from the conscious.
No, you cannot. It's hard. You already created a beautiful opening for me, a bridge to what we go into.
How do we get to the actual deep core of our programming? And how can we identify and transform these really deep-seated negative beliefs, especially because we pay attention a lot to how we feel or what we think in our conscious again. But usually the core of what I notice with myself, it's really deep beliefs usually that hinder us subconsciously. So how do we access this space?
Beautiful question. I love it. So how we access this space, for me in my work and my experience, is that the mental element, like you said, the beliefs, is just one part of a blockage, of an issue, of a pattern that we have. That's why I work holistically, which means I work on the mental level with my clients, I work on the emotional level and the somatic level. You cannot separate them, because for a belief or a limited belief to be created, there was a trauma response, and the trauma response carries these three elements: a limited belief created in a moment of pain, in a moment of trauma, which carries an emotion like anxiety, fear, anything, you know, what we experience in moments of trauma. So that emotional response creates a limited belief, but also creates a somatic response. That's why trauma is also stored in the body, not only in the subconscious mind. So to answer your question, it's like how we access it, usually through the body. Because the body has a different intelligence than the mind. The mind tries to protect us, tries to kind of control situations. And then if we keep on figuring out those limited beliefs only with the mind, we keep on being in this loop and we can't really figure out what's actually really happening. But through the body, the somatic layer, it's a completely different universe once you dive into the somatic part of a blockage. Because that's where the trauma is stored as well, not only in the mind.
Where exactly is it stored?
It depends on your experience. So when I work with, for example, with regression therapy, when we start working with a limited belief. Connected with that limited belief, there's an emotion connected, and that can. When I ask you where do you feel maybe anxiety, or you have a limited belief, I'm afraid or to be alone, and you feel there's an anxiety connected to it, and I will ask you where in your body do you feel that? It could be in your heart that there's anxiety. So then we go into your heart and speak with that part in you that creates or that carries anxiety. And then we access also the subconscious. So through the body, because the body carries a different intelligence, a different knowledge and wisdom than the mind.
So you connect deeply with the feeling. Where is it physically stored, the trauma? And do all clients or people know where it's stored?
Yeah, especially if they either are disconnected or dissociated because of trauma or like PTSD, anything, then it takes some more time to get into the body and to create that new sense of safety. But then we first need to work with the mind and actually give the mind this new sense of safety. Okay, it's safe. You can let go a little bit of control. Okay, it's safe. You know, and then once the mind starts to lose its protection, we can drop deeper into the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how does the reprogramming work? How do we change our limiting beliefs? I mean, it's all about that, right? Probably it's not a quick fix and requires a lot of work.
Yeah.
I can be wrong, maybe it's...
I think also from my experience, a limited belief is multi-layered. It never has one root cause. So, for example, if I work with my clients with one limited belief or one pattern, it can stem from childhood trauma. Then I work a lot with inner child healing. So how do we kind of reprogram that to first allow that part, that wounded, traumatized part, to be fully expressed, to be fully felt, and create that new sense of safety to kind of free that part that's energetically still stuck in the past. Because that happens once that part in you, if you experience trauma and it couldn't complete the traumatic movement, it stays stuck in the past.
Yeah, it's even like a funny, I don't know, phenomenon to me to understand how can emotions be stuck, you know? How can we so dearly hold on to them in our body?
I think as a child, we almost have no other choice sometimes. Because if there's not a safe container, not a safe space from our parents, for example, if our parents were not emotionally available to us or to themselves, I, as a child, I'm not going to express myself because it's too much of a risk that it might create more trouble or more stress for my parents. So what do we do? And that's a big thing within all the trauma work that I do, the loyalty conflict we have with our parents or our family. Because as children, we have this loyalty conflict, which means, okay, I will just keep it with myself because I don't want to bother my parents. Or out of loyalty or out of blind love, that's a concept within family constellation work, out of blind love, we say, I will do this for you, I will carry this for you, I keep it inside. So that's how they get stored. Yeah. So if it's an emotion is not expressed in the moment, and then I continue with life 20 years later, I've never expressed that emotion or that emotional response, it's still here somewhere.
Interesting. Yes. So once we access this suppressed emotion, we can actually release it?
Yes, because we can complete that which I couldn't complete back then.
So how do most people release their suppressed emotions?
Well, that can be in different ways, whether just through crying, through allowing that movement, whether it's in words, in a physical movement, through speaking, through tears, through a scream, whatever it is that is authentic to them, through that old response that was never completed, that never had a chance or a safe space to be completed.
Yeah. So once we release this emotion, how can we create new neural pathways, new neural circuits of behavior, new habits? That's like the most difficult part, I think. Yeah, because we cannot create a new reality by repeating the old neural circuits. And as we all know, change is always in the unknown. Sometimes when we take a new way, we embark on a new way, we try to learn a new behavior, we try to make a new decision into and walk on a new path. Usually when we take a new way, we don't always get the rewards we used to, whether it's a biochemical or external validation because it's new. So how do we find that confidence to still keep going without the external validation, without the quick reward that we're so used to, that also becomes this addiction of always repeating the same, sometimes even toxic cycles?
Yeah.
How do we get rid of the expectation of immediate reward? How do we trust the potential of a future that we don't see or feel yet and still walk into the unknown with confidence? Yeah.
If it's rooted in, for example, childhood trauma, the example you just gave, how you can create that inner validation without needing to look for it outside. Because the moment we keep on looking for it outside, we kind of give our power away and then we keep on being in that cycle, right?
Yeah.
So for me, the process of reparenting, I don't know if you're familiar with that, reparenting the inner child, which means that the mature adult you, the person you are now, if you are taking care, and there's a whole process about reparenting, taking care of that younger part of you that maybe was in trauma or was in pain, didn't receive what it needed from its parents or caretakers. If you now can take the ownership of that reparenting and like really validating, seeing, loving, nurturing that part in you, those younger versions in you that were in pain or maybe still are in pain, that's where you can kind of take that ownership and self-responsibility. And the moment that part in you, those parts in you feel more nourished, more validated, more acknowledged, more honored, the process of external validation kind of starts to subside because it's not needed, because I'm really finding that completion within these parts in me that once were fragmented or hurt or wounded or traumatized.
Yes, that makes sense. But it takes still confidence to trust yourself or start trusting yourself when you're so used to, you know, looking for the validation outside. And a lot of people do. We all do it in some areas of life.
Yeah.
How do we build that inner confidence, or how do we ease our body more into trusting ourselves more and going into the unknown, trying new things, new ways of behavior, the ones that we actually want to incorporate into our life?
I think the confidence is connected also how we source do we feel within ourselves. So the more resource I feel within myself, the more fulfilled I feel within myself, the more confident. Confidence is just a result of me feeling resource within myself.
Yeah.
I know that I am enough.
Yeah.
I know that I'm worthy.
Yeah.
But that before we can get there, we need to do these internal processes of the subconscious trauma. And there are few ways, of course, like I said, this is all for me multi-layered. There's not one element to a limited belief or to a pattern. There are multi-layers to that. And different ways how we can access it. But I think the feeling we source within ourselves is the main key to feeling confident. Because that's just a natural result of that.
Right. So if confidence is the result of feeling truly in your body, in your, you know.
And in sense of safety as well. Creating this sense of safety, especially if you've never experienced that or not enough, there's this lack. And then if we didn't feel safe enough as a child, of course, we're going to look for that survival trauma response. We're going to look for that validation outside.
Yeah.
To finally feel safe again. Because that's a basic need of every human being, every child, but also human being, to feel safe. It's our basic need.
You said that as children, as kids, we are dependent on our parents for love, for anything, everything, you know,
yes, we are.
for safety. And as human beings, we are codependent. We are social beings. We need each other to function in our system, you know, on our human earth.
Yes.
And especially kids. When does this codependency start to become unhealthy? When, at what point does it deviate from healthy dosage, you know, of codependency amongst us and also between our parents? And when does it start to deviate into unhealthy patterns like obsession or...
Yeah, it's almost like codependency can almost be like a similar, like an addictive pattern.
Yes. So when does it... Because I see that a lot.
Yeah,
in
of course.
so many people, codependency is a big topic.
Yeah, it's a big topic. I've seen a lot of clients over the last 10, 11 years with codependency and struggling. And I was one of them, actually. Yeah. So to be really honest. So from my experience, codependency starts to, like you said, deviate the moment that I'm not resourced, I don't feel safe within myself anymore. So I leave myself and I need the other to feel safe. So what happens when I'm becoming codependent? I cannot be at peace. I cannot feel safe within myself. If you talk about healthy codependency, it's kind of, okay, I am safe within myself and I love that other person is with me. I enjoy it. But when I say I enjoy, you can already maybe feel the difference. I enjoy it, so I'm at peace. If I think I need you, there's a contraction, there is something that is restless within me. And without that other person or without the drugs, because we can have codependency even with drugs or anything, you know, outside of ourselves, I'm not safe without that other being or that other whatever it is outside of me.
But doesn't that get taught to us when we're young that we are not safe without our parents? It's a fact. It's the truth.
Yeah.
Like we will die if the parents don't. Everything depends on the care of our parents. So do you know at what age we need to start to develop our own ways of creating our own safety?
Yes.
For ourselves.
So especially the first 7 until 8 years, it's a bit different between boys and girls, but until like the age of 7 or 8, we really need them. We depend on them. But the moment like after 8, 9, 10, when we also slowly going through transition, like into puberty, that's a little bit later, of course, then we need to create this healthy exploration. Who am I without my parents?
Yes.
Who am I without them? And I'm going to explore in different families of my friends, maybe how is life unfolding there and how does that feel for me?
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean I don't need my parents, but I'm creating this healthy like exploration of a little bit independence.
Yeah.
But at the same time, of course, I still need to feel I can rely on my parents.
Right.
If that's lacking, that's where later on that child usually creates also codependency, because if I don't feel I can rely on my parents, if they're not emotionally, mentally, physically available for me, it creates this unsafety. And if I then grow up 20 years later, I'm in a relationship with a partner, that inner child gets triggered, gets activated, because as soon as we enter an intimate relationship and we have a traumatized inner child who couldn't rely on their parents, that gets triggered, and that inner child is going to look for that then, okay, give me that, because I didn't receive that and I still need it, because it's an unmet need, it's an unmet desire from the child.
Yeah, it's like this hole that was never really filled.
Exactly.
And we keep going through life looking for anything that can fill it.
Exactly, but nothing
Temporary.
can ever fill that. Exactly.
Yeah. So interesting. So too much of codependency to an unhealthy degree can be created through those two things then.
Yes.
Being too dependent on our parents and
Yes.
never really learning
Yes.
how to separate.
Exactly.
And the other extreme
Otherwise, it's
of,
the merging, right? Then it's the merging, which
Yeah.
also can then happen later in intimate relationships. What you see also with codependency, there's like those people usually don't know how am I feeling independent without them, because
Yeah.
there's no separation. It's like so merged.
Yeah, and then also the other extreme of not having your needs fulfilled and the parents
Exactly.
being not available.
Yeah, which creates a lot of unsafety.
Wow, there's a very fine line in these in the
Yeah.
middle of these two that is,
It's
I think,
true.
really hard also to meet from the parent side.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So-
for sure.
Yeah,
For sure, because also the parents, they carry their own trauma. And
course.
when are you ever a perfect parent? I think we never are. We do the
Yeah.
best we can,
Yeah.
with the tools we have. And I think especially the generations before us, not even the first generation, but the generations even further back,
Yeah.
they didn't have the tools. We couldn't have conversations like this
Yeah.
about awareness, consciousness, trauma healing. It wasn't available to them.
yeah. Do you think maybe every human is impacted by some kind of codependency? I don't want to say issue, but there's so
I
many
think that they're definitely
levels.
in different degrees.
Yeah,
I think we are. And it's really fine-tuning that balance of, okay, do I feel safe enough within myself? And I still need other people, but not because if that person leaves me tomorrow, I'm a big mess and I cannot take care of myself.
yeah, which usually happens
Yeah.
right after a breakup or
Yeah.
this separation.
Yes.
Yeah. Why do we become addicted to even toxic emotions like stress? Why do we keep reinforcing them even though we understand they're not good for us? But when we logically decide we want to change it, the body is still gonna crave
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
experiences like an addiction because it's familiar to us. Why is that happening, and how can we again ease our body into a different direction? How do we get away from unhealthy addictions, especially to emotions, even like toxic emotions?
So what do you mean with toxic emotions? What does that mean
Like
for you?
stress. If we keep reinforcing these
Yeah.
cycles, it will create disease in us.
Yeah,
It's going
yeah.
against our own survival, our own, human being,
Yeah.
which doesn't even make sense, but we keep still doing it because it's this pattern of addiction.
I think there are a few things to that, but one of it is if we are so used to being in survival response and we never had an imprint of a healthy way of maybe coping with stress, coping with life, coping with emotions. If I never had a different reference point, for example, as a child,
Yeah.
again, it goes back to the relationship with our parents. And even like I said in the beginning, even inside of the womb, when we are in our mother's womb, the first imprint of the nervous system is our mother's nervous system, because we're one with her. We're not separated. For 9 months, everything she's going through, we feel, we internalize, especially on a somatic level, because we don't have the brain developed. We have to understand, this is not mine, this is my mother's. I don't know, because it feels like one.
Yeah.
So that first imprint already starts there. So if my mom never learned how to deal with stress, how to deal with her emotions, was maybe in a lot of survival during her pregnancy, that's my first imprint. So I don't even know any better. On a cellular level, that's how I deal with stress. That's how I deal with life.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's really deeply subconscious. That's something that I see a lot with clients that have already tried so much. But if it's so subconscious, and the further back in time, the more subconscious it's hidden than something that happened a year ago, it's something that happened in my mother's womb, where my brain wasn't developed yet, where only my body was feeling all the stress she was going through, for example. We really need to dive deep into the subconscious and kind of separate us from the energy and the experience of our mother.
Wow. How do we do that?
I do that through the modality of regression therapy, where I take people through a meditative state into the subconscious, and I bring them back into the moment where they were in their mother's womb. And then first of all, we create awareness. Okay, what was your mother going through in those 9 months? And where in your body did you internalize that? So we connect kind of with the consciousness, the awareness of the baby that you were.
Wow.
And that's where we start first create awareness, and then we separate the energies of our mother that we internalized.
How do we separate that?
Yeah, it's a whole process.
Maybe you can walk us through a little bit.
Yeah, of course. So if someone has a certain issue, usually 9 out of 10 times, that issue is something that the mother also went through in pregnancy. So when you talk about toxic emotions or kind of being addicted to that, of being familiar with that, that would be something that, for example, the mother of someone who was dealing with a lot of toxic emotions was going through in those 9 months.
Wow.
9 out of 10 times. I see it all the time.
I see it now.
Yeah, really?
Wow, yeah, that's true.
So what I do with my clients is I guide them back into the moment where they were in their mother's womb, and I ask their subconscious, I kind of command the subconscious to go to a moment where the mother was experiencing that. And I allow that awareness of the baby to speak, that younger version of you, like, and then that comes out, okay, and then we kind of separate it. We also speak to our mother like, this is not mine. I carried it for you. I didn't know any better, but now, with love and respect, I honor you. I honor your pain or your stress, but I cannot carry it for you anymore.
Beautiful. Wow. That's such impactful work. Yes. I feel like everyone needs to.
Yeah.
By the way, how did you discover your way into even going back to the womb? That's it makes total sense also from a psychological perspective. You know?
Yeah. So how I discovered it actually for myself, because of the trauma that I've been through in my own childhood. I was seeing a psychologist and for years, and it was helping me, but only to a certain degree. And then I think years later, I got referred to a regression therapist back in the Netherlands, where I'm from. And it was the first time that I felt really liberated after a therapy or healing session. Because if we only talk about the problem or the trauma or the issue, we only like resolving one layer of the trauma.
And it's only this conscious.
Exactly. And I could talk for hours. And for some people, it all has its perfect timing. We need that talk therapy. We need, psychotherapy. We need psychologists for sure. But if the emotional and the somatic layer are not involved, are not integrated, there's still this lingering part. And that's also why the patterns keep on coming back, because there's still the emotional charge, the somatic charge.
Yeah.
And after I don't know how many sessions I did with regression therapy, I really felt, because I was working back then for the government, for the public health, as a sexual health nurse. And I saw a lot of women with sexual trauma. And I felt I would love to support these women or people with this kind of trauma in a way more holistic way than only talking with them for 10 minutes. And then I started to dive deeper into, okay, how can I study it? And then I studied regression and reincarnation therapy back in the Netherlands. And that's where womb regression, birth regression, inner child regression, all of that, ancestral healing. I studied family constellation as well. So these are all, for me, amazing, powerful, holistic healing modalities that kind of integrate all these layers and not just one.
Yeah. Wow.
And for me, it didn't feel right anymore once I discovered this healing modality or the more holistic way of healing, that I only had 10 minutes to talk with a woman who experienced maybe sexual trauma or any kind of trauma related to sexuality. I just couldn't anymore. My heart was like, no, you deserve so much more than 10 minutes of my time.
Yes.
That was my thrive actually, to study and to be able to offer way more to these women who experience this trauma.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. What is the role of family constellations in revealing hidden dynamics within the family systems, identifying and resolving long-standing family conflicts and patterns, especially the unconscious ones, subconscious ones? Also, how can we repair a very deeply wounded relationship to our parents? I feel like our relationship to our parents is obviously such an important source of either, strength and confidence, or completely the opposite, can be a really source of destruction or self-sabotage. And also a lot of the inner voices we hear throughout our life, if we really dive into and analyze exactly how they are behaving, a lot of These inner voice is coming from our parents.
Yeah.
Like one of my inner voices is my mom. And once I realized, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
She's still talking to me everywhere I go.
Yes.
I hear the limiting beliefs. I keep telling to myself as my inner voice whatever she told me in specific situations.
Yeah. Two things. So the first one, family constellation has the main intention to kind of reveal, shed light on any hidden dynamics that are subconsciously playing out within our family. And especially I say subconsciously because it's something we're not even aware of, that these hidden dynamics are playing out and that they're causing any issues in our life. So through this modality, we kind of become aware, where am I maybe entangled? Where am I maybe carrying the pain, the trauma, the burdens of my mother, my father, my grandparents? And one big thing, like I mentioned before, why do we do that as children? We have this loyalty to our parents. So even if it means out of this blind love, we say, I will do this for you.
Yeah.
I will carry this for you. Even if it means I'm suffering as a child, we don't even know that that means we are suffering, but I will say, let me carry this for you.
And it also makes sense because it's for our own survival.
Because we need them.
We need them.
We need them in order to feel safe. So
Exactly.
if my mother doesn't feel happy or I see she's struggling, she's in a lot of pain, on an energetic level, I can say, let me carry this for you, mom. Because if I carry it, I know at least she's more happy and I'm more safe.
Yeah.
So it's also to create that safety.
Yeah.
But then later on, we're still carrying those beliefs, like you said, and the patterns or maybe their pain. So what we do in family constellation work, we kind of create this awareness. Where are we carrying these hidden burdens or trauma or pain, and we kind of release them, we give them back to where they belong, so things come back into the rightful place, things fall back into the right order. Because within family constellation, there are a few natural laws that we work with within a system. One of them is that everyone has the right to belong, everyone has the right to be included within a family. Also, everyone needs to be in their rightful place. What does that mean? That if I'm as a daughter, for example, so parents systemically supposed to be here. I'm supposed as a child, because I became after them, I'm supposed to be here because parents give is a natural law, children receive. If that natural law is out of balance, it's going to create issues for me as a child. So for example, if I'm leaving my rightful place within my family as the daughter, for whatever reason, if my father is addicted, is going through mental health issues, is physically ill, like my father had cancer when I was 15. So what happened? I left my rightful place as a child in the system, and I actually went above him as a caretaker.
Yeah.
So I lost my rightful place. Even if he already passed energetically, I still lost my place. So for there to be, the life force cannot flow. If I leave my place in my family, life force, love cannot flow. They also call this parentification. I'm not sure if you heard about parentification.
No.
That means if I become the parent of my parents. And
Yes.
that's where I get entangled with their pain. And in family constellation work, we want to own and reclaim our rightful place as the child again.
Yeah.
So the moment I'm in my rightful place again, life force, love can flow again.
Right. And if you need to take on too much as a child, you probably also subconsciously build some kind of resentment the whole time. It builds up against your parents.
Yes.
So
there's a lot of protection and armor and like distance that it creates. And, and one of the things in family constellation work is also important. Like I honor what separated us and I honor what connected us.
What do you mean, what separated us?
What separated us, maybe the trauma or the pain. So can I still honor that? Can I see my parents for all that they are, including the things they couldn't give me?
Wow.
And that's where the healing comes in.
Yes.
If I can see them, yeah, you can feel it. If I can see them and take in all of them, including that which they couldn't give me, I can see them. I can say yes to them. And if I can say yes to my parents, I can say yes to life. Because they created life for me. Especially our mother, she represents life for us. So the moment I cannot say yes to my mother, cannot embrace her, I cannot say yes to life. And I actually reject a part within myself the moment I reject her.
Wow. What are some really common patterns and dynamics you observe in family constellation work? What are the most common issues people have in terms of working through family constellations?
I see most often people with mental health issues. I see people with anxiety, people with depression a lot. Also people with codependency, abandonment wounds, like you just said. Abandonment is a big thing, which creates then anxiety as well, because they're really connected.
How does this abandonment wound develop, and why is it so common?
So abandonment happens within me, again, if I'm not acknowledged, if I'm not accepted, if I'm not welcomed by my parents, because it's a core wound. It's really a primal wound. So again, if I'm already maybe in the womb, that's where it starts. If my mother couldn't really fully embrace me for whatever reason she was going through, I feel already this core abandonment. And everything that happened after it, every little abandonment for a child can be really big. So the moment my parents cannot be like fully accepting me, or not fully, I want to say if they cannot accept me or welcome me, for me as a child, I can internalize it as an abandonment. Even through the eyes of an adult, it might not be a big deal what I did as a parent, but through the experience of a child, which needs so much safety as a basic need, I can feel like completely abandoned if they're not available.
There's such a fine line between I don't remember what exact age, but I think 4 or 5, where it switches, you know, the mom from just giving unconditional love all the time, being there all the time, to then kind of teaching the child to become its own person, and to kind of learn how to solve issues by themselves.
That's also when they go to school, right? When they go to kindergarten, all these things.
This transformation, it's a transition is also really hard for mothers to understand what is the right approach, and when do I always be there for the child, and when do I step, you know, back and teach it how to deal it on you know, on its own. I just wanted to recognize that it's a very fine line.
The thing is, abandonment, it's also something we internalize, because for the parent, it might not feel that we are abandoning, for example, our child. I'm just busy. I'm stressed because of work. I internalize the belief because I don't have the emotional maturity that I understand that mommy and daddy are busy, or that they're stressed, or that they are grieving, or whatever they're going through. I don't understand. So what I feel, okay, I'm not loved. I'm not lovable enough. I'm not worthy of love. I feel abandoned.
Here's the question, actually, that I wanted to ask. So how does a mother know when to give unconditional love and be always there, and never leave the child, you know, so it doesn't develop these abandonment issues or wounds, and when to step back and let the kid figure it out by on its own? Like
there's a fine line, and I don't have the perfect advice for that. The one thing what comes to me is always acknowledge the child's experience, number one. That doesn't mean that you are solving everything, that you don't kind of awaken or activate its own capacity to discover how can I solve this by myself. But acknowledgement is the base. If I don't feel acknowledged, this can create this abandonment. So acknowledge the emotions or the experience it's going through. Ask questions so the child starts to think by itself, but knowing that you are there.
What are the biological and psychological pathways through which generational trauma is transmitted from one generation to another? Like, how does the transmission of trauma across generation happen? Why is it even possible that we still carry trauma from our ancestors?
Okay, so I come back to those natural laws that I was talking about before. So within every system, there are a few natural laws for there to be balance, for there to be peace. If those natural laws are out of order, it creates an imbalance, it creates issues. So for example, one of these natural laws is within a family system, everyone is responsible for their own fate, for their own destiny, for their own trauma. If I'm not able, for whatever reason, to deal with my own trauma, because I don't even have the awareness maybe that there was a trauma, so I just continue with life, and then the moment I kind of pass away with this unresolved trauma, what happens for there to be balance on an energetic level? Someone else within the family is going to be entangled with my trauma for there to be peace, for there to be balance. You get what I mean? So if my grandfather had a big trauma, he went to war, he never had the capacity or the coping tools to deal with it. Out of this loyalty, energetically, I can say, I will carry this for you, for there to be balance within my family system.
How does it create balance when you carry the trauma?
Because at least there's someone that's carrying it.
Okay.
You get what I mean?
But he's carrying it as well.
Energetically, he has not dealt with it. So someone else is saying, okay, I'm going to carry it for you. And I'm going to... It's also the thing, we don't need to work on our ancestral trauma. We don't need to work with the trauma of our grandparents, for example. What's needed usually within systemic work is to acknowledge and honor what they've been through. Usually then there's peace within a family system. Why is there no peace? Because they were never acknowledged in their pain, in their suffering. The moment energetically I can acknowledge the pain of my grandparents, you will see, if I work in family constellation work, we work with morphogenetic field. Have you ever heard about morphogenetic field? So it's the knowing field that we work with within family constellation work, which carries the soul of a family. That morphogenetic field, it's even more and more research is coming scientifically, like proven about this morphogenetic field that carries this memory on a subconscious level within a family system. The moment someone gets acknowledged and honored for what they've been through, you immediately feel it in the space when we're working with family constellation, because we always do it in a group setting. At least I work in a group setting. You feel the pieces coming because like, okay, someone is finally seeing me.
Wow. Yes.
So it is like, then the healing starts to happen.
Yeah, it's a form of release and
Exactly.
kind of giving even the worst parts of a person permission to exist.
That's true.
And space. And
Exactly.
it's also the same with truth. Like the moment we shed light on
That's
the truth,
the same.
darkest part of someone,
Yeah.
then it can exist. It gives
Exactly.
permission to
Yes.
exist. And then the healing automatically kind of cleanses the consciousness, awareness of this existence already kind of eliminates the tension it was holding to kind of be in the dark and be,
that's it.
not
and that's
seen.
The same what happens within systemic work. With someone within this system was never at peace for whatever reason. If that person or a family secret, whatever it is, gets acknowledged, you just feel things falling into place, things falling back into the rightful order. The life force, the order of love can flow again.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful process to witness. It's something also hard to explain in words. You really have to kind of be part of it to experience it as well. Yeah.
And it's beautiful, like you said, you feel it on an energetic level.
Yeah.
And it's all energetic.
Exactly.
So,
yes.
All the trauma we hold and
yes.
It's also interesting. Usually a lot of times we don't even feel how much pain, trauma, stress, tension we hold until the moment we drop it and release it. And then we notice, wow, I flow again. I feel it easy again. And,
Also, that's when we feel our body more. That's when we feel this new sense of safety because, I can drop, like you said, my nervous system can be more regulated. I feel more safe. So, now I feel my body more. I feel more here.
Yeah, like some layers were disappeared or shed.
And we work a lot with entanglements. You know what entanglements mean? Mm-mm. If I'm entangled with kind of the fate, the destiny, the burdens of my ancestors, it's going to create issues for me because I'm not living for my life force energy. I'm not living my destiny. I'm not living my path because I'm loyal to them. So I'm carrying still something, which also means I'm not free to live my path.
Yeah.
I'm still somewhere energetically connected with their path, which probably is a completely different path.
Yeah. Do you go into past lives with clients?
Yes, like in the one-on-one. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, that's the reincarnation part.
How can exploring past life experiences provide insights into unresolved psychological conflicts and emotional patterns in the present life? So how can going back to past life experiences help us in our current life?
So from the modality that I work with, we have this approach that the soul is always looking for completion. The soul is looking for wholeness. So if you believe in reincarnation, which means we live different lives, right? Different lifetimes. And anything that is unresolved, unhealed from a past life that was traumatic or painful for me, in the next reincarnation, the soul, or that part of the soul, is going to look for similar experiences, similar triggers to kind of complete that, which was not resolved, was not healed from a previous life. So it looks for similar kind of people, similar triggers, similar circumstances to become whole. So when I work with certain traumas or triggers, patterns, blockages with people that they're struggling with now, usually if they've already done a lot of work on themselves and they cannot really find what's the answer, we go back into past life and then we see whether they were a victim of something or they were even the perpetrator, because you have this polarity. You have a victim life, past life, or a perpetrator. And for there to be kind of balance in that polarity, we need to both resolve them or integrate them. So it's more working on a soul level. It's different than the inner child healing where we work more with the person we are now. It's more working on a soul level.
How do you go into these past life experiences?
With the regression therapy, we bring the clients into a meditative state, and through the meditative state, I bring them back. I guide them back through the past life. It's a process really on a subconscious level. It's not something that it's tangible to explain in words.
Yeah,
it's something you have to experience.
How did you learn how to guide? Can you guide yourself into past lives?
You can, but there still will be some either old protections, or there will be blind spots where I'm not able to fully go and to kind of release or heal. But there's just some techniques that can kind of guide the client into that subconscious memory. And again, also through the physical, because I really help them to associate with the experience in that past life through the body, feeling, where are you? What's happening around you? What do you hear? What do you feel? What do you smell? And then all of a sudden, all these old memories, just through the subconscious, they come back.
Interesting that it's in our body, although this body is in theory new, from this life.
But on a cellular level, you carry that.
Yeah, those topics are really intangible. It's hard to imagine how our DNA can carry information, from our family tree, from our past life.
Yeah, that's why I said it's multi-layered. It's not
Yes.
just, there's so many facets that can impact any patterns or blockages that we have. It's just not one. It can either be childhood, womb trauma, it
Yeah.
can be ancestral, generational trauma, it can be past life. And that's also why I work with these different areas to work in, because they all usually have a layer of unresolved trauma that we want to integrate to become more whole, to become more safe in our current life right now.
How would you describe the essence of our soul?
Wow. Okay.
Because you do a lot of work on the soul level,
Yeah,
guiding the soul to past lives. It's so interesting to me right now. It's fascinating, but also very intangible. So how would you describe this I don't know, energy or substance?
The word that comes to me is wholeness.
Wholeness.
There's kind of a wholeness that the soul is looking for. Like I said, it wants to be whole. It wants to, there's like an infinity as well.
Yeah.
Infinity, love. It's like this. And when that is not there, it keeps on looking for that, because depending on what you believe, what is source, where do we come from? There's so many theories about it and so many different approaches to that.
Consciousness, light,
exactly,
this expansion, endless expansion.
And evolution, we evolve as a soul as well.
Yes.
So for me, it feels wholeness would be the most on point, like, description of this soul work. Like, you come to a place of more wholeness within.
I think every human tries to find their way back to love, unconditional love.
Exactly. Yeah. To wholeness, to feel whole, to feel loved.
Yes. This is more a question for all coaches and healers. How do you maintain your own mental and emotional well-being while working with trauma survivors or clients that carry a lot of deep, painful traumas?
For me personally, there are two ways. One of it, I need to just nourish myself. I need to take enough time to nourish myself. The second thing is to be really aware of your own trauma responses. Because, for example, if one of my trauma responses was people pleaser, and I become a therapist or a healer or a coach, you can imagine I'm giving a lot, I'm over giving. It's depleting me. So where do I come from when I'm supporting my clients, when I'm guiding them through? If I'm coming from this place of my own maybe unhealed child wound or my own survival responses, it's going to deplete me really quickly.
Yeah.
Another one is if I'm not grounded within myself, am I dissociated? If I'm not in my body, there's an energy leak. I get depleted really, really easy. So it's like really taking care of your own trauma, really feeling safe within yourself, feeling grounded within yourself.
Yeah. Would you say you already healed your own traumas, or are you still on a journey?
I think the biggest traumas, it feels like they are more and more integrated. I'm not saying fully. And I think it's an ongoing journey. There's always another layer. The thing is, how I cope with it and how I respond to it, that has changed a lot through the work that I've done. That doesn't mean that the trauma responses will never show up anymore, but I know how to deal with them much better. I feel more safe within myself, so I can cope with them.
Yeah.
I have more resources to cope with them.
Do you think we can ever be fully healed from our deepest, even, past generational trauma, past lives trauma? Like, so much we carry.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we're always evolving. But it's also, sometimes we're looking for more and more healing. And then again, it's interesting, where's it coming from? Because I don't feel good enough. I need more healing.
Yeah.
It's another interesting question.
Yeah, new traumas can be created during our life. New stuff.
Exactly. Even yesterday I could have had a trauma, right? So we continuously healing. I don't think we will ever be fully healed.
Yeah.
It's
just about finding, like you said, techniques to constantly
Yes.
react differently and cope with them in a more healthy manner.
Exactly.
What is creativity to you, and what role does creativity and imagination have in healing?
Beautiful question. So especially in family constellation work, for me, it makes me really creative. If you have never experienced it, right?
No, I want to.
So if you would have experienced, yes, you should. It's beautiful because what happens is there's a process going on of within a family system, and I'm kind of creating this field, co-creating this field together with the people that are involved. Because within family constellation work, other people are representing family members of the person who has an issue they would like to work on. So then I really become creative, and it's not really the imaginary part, but it's more the creative part where I'm kind of creating the constellation together with the field, together with the people involved to see what needs to be come to the surface, what needs to be seen, what needs to be brought to the light. So that's where I use a lot of like creative expression, creative energy to kind of, move around what needs to be moved.
Yeah, and kind of experiment and explore different ways of approach or different combinations.
Yes, it's a lot of exploration.
How can we get to
Yes.
the essence of healing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. But imagination also plays a role, right?
I think,
imagine-
especially within regression therapy, regression reincarnation therapy, there's a lot of imagination, visualization. That's really a big element actually of this modality, because if we cannot like kind of imagine or access the imagination of what happened as a child at certain points, it kind of is really hard to access it.
Yeah. How do you or how can you impact the world with what you do? It's a big question. And what would you say if the whole world would listen to you? What do you feel everyone needs to hear?
Yeah, that the answer comes up for that one. So for me, impacting the world with what I'm doing is healing the generational trauma that's being passed down for so long. And the moment there's only one person within a family system, within a generational cycle, who kind of opens their heart to the system and says, okay, I open my heart for transformation, I stop the cycle, that's what can change the world. Because if we don't pass down, if we break down the cycle of all the trauma that has been passed down, that's how we can change the world in a big way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And create a better, healthier future.
For the next generations to come.
Yes.
For the planet.
Yeah.
For everything involved, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
What do you think is something that everyone on this world needs to hear? Or maybe what do you see people doing that is blocking themselves, that maybe something, if they would hear it, a reminder or advice, that they would maybe change or think about something?
I would like to let people know that there are safe spaces in the world where they can be really themselves, with all these traumatized parts, with all these wounded parts, these ugly parts, the parts that they feel ashamed about, guilty about, that they have abandoned within themselves. There are safe spaces where you're fully accepted and welcomed and acknowledged with all these parts.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's the end.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Thank you as well. Yeah, so
Yeah.
many beautiful sharings and wisdoms. And I think we covered.
Yeah, we covered
some
quite a lot.
important- yeah.
Oh, I'm happy. Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah.
All right, maybe we do like part 2.
Yeah, I was thinking that before. Yeah, maybe we could do part 2. We'd
Yeah, to
definitely be
go-
open to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
To go a little bit deeper.
Yeah.